Have you ever had one of those moments where you suddenly realize that everyone around you has been living in a completely different version of reality than you have? That's honestly the only way I can describe what happened to me. By the time everything finally blew up, my family had split into sides, my marriage had nearly been dragged into the middle of it, and I had spent months wondering if I was somehow the problem. The worst part was that the person who convinced me I might be losing my mind wasn't a stranger, or an ex. It was my own younger sister. For context, I'm 32, married to my husband Ethan, who's 34, and we've been together for almost 9 years. We've built a pretty stable life together. We both work full-time, bought our first house a few years ago, and for the most part things are calm. That's one of the reasons this whole situation hit me so hard. I had spent years trying to create some distance from my family's constant drama, and I honestly thought I'd succeeded. The center of that drama has almost always been my younger sister, Lily, who's 28. Growing up, Lily had this strange ability to make everyone around her feel protective of her. She wasn't loud or openly manipulative. If anything, she came across as incredibly sweet. Teachers loved her. Neighbors always commented on what a polite girl she was. My grandparents constantly talked about how sensitive she was, and my parents seemed to treat that sensitivity like it was something fragile that needed protecting. Meanwhile, I became the responsible one. At first, I actually thought that was a compliment. It wasn't until I got older that I realized being the responsible child mostly meant people expected me to sacrifice without complaining. If Lily forgot her homework, I should have reminded her. If she spent all her allowance after 2 days, maybe I should share mine. If she forgot Mom's birthday, somehow I should have helped her remember. If Lily cried, nobody really cared why she was crying. The room immediately shifted into figuring out who had upset her, and more often than not, that somehow ended with everyone looking at me. I remember one argument when we were teenagers where she asked if she could borrow one of my favorite sweaters. I told her she could as long as she brought it back, because I planned on wearing it that weekend. About an hour later, my mom came into my room looking irritated and asked why I had been so mean to my sister. I was completely confused because I genuinely thought the conversation had been perfectly normal. Apparently Lily had gone downstairs, crying, and told Mom that I made her feel selfish for even asking. I tried explaining exactly what had happened, but it didn't matter. My mom just sighed and told me I knew Lily was emotional and that I should have been more careful with my tone. That happened so many times growing up that eventually I stopped defending myself. It honestly felt easier just to apologize for things I didn't think I'd done than spend hours trying to convince everyone else that the conversation they thought happened hadn't. Things actually got much better after I moved out. Distance helped a lot. I focused on my own career, met Ethan, got married, and slowly stopped thinking about all the weird family dynamics I'd grown up with. Lily bounced between jobs during those years, but there was always an explanation. Every boss was supposedly toxic. Every coworker was jealous of her. Every breakup happened because the guy was intimidated by how independent she was. If you only listened to her side of every story, she somehow managed to end up being the victim every single time. I didn't question it very much because, honestly, I wasn't there. Maybe she really had terrible luck. The first time I genuinely started wondering whether something was off happened last Thanksgiving. My parents host Thanksgiving every year, and it's a huge family event. There were probably 25 people packed into their house. Dinner itself was completely normal. My uncle was making terrible jokes, my grandmother was criticizing the mashed potatoes like she always does, and everyone was talking over each other in that chaotic family way that somehow still feels comforting. After dinner, people started breaking off into little groups around the house. That's when Lily suddenly announced that she and her boyfriend Marcus had broken up. The entire room went silent. My aunt immediately walked over and hugged her before Lily had even explained what happened. My mom looked like she was about to cry, and someone handed Lily tissues almost instantly. She took a deep breath before telling everyone that Marcus had become emotionally abusive. She said he constantly criticized her, controlled how she spent money, embarrassed her in public, and made her feel like she couldn't do anything right. The more she talked, the angrier everyone around the room became. I could hear my uncle muttering that Marcus sounded like a complete loser, and my dad looked furious despite barely knowing the guy. The problem was, I recognized one of the stories she was telling. A few months earlier, Ethan and I had gone on a double date with Lily and Marcus. At one point, Marcus quietly leaned over the table and asked if maybe they should skip ordering another bottle of wine because they were already spending more than they'd planned. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He honestly looked embarrassed even bringing it up. Lily laughed loud enough that nearby tables turned around to look at us and said something like, "Oh my God, you always act like you're broke." Marcus immediately looked humiliated. I still remember him apologizing to the server because the whole interaction had become awkward. Ethan squeezed my knee under the table because we were both uncomfortable watching it happen. So when Lily told my entire family that Marcus had publicly humiliated her over money, I felt this weird knot forming in my stomach. I didn't say anything. What was I supposed to do? Interrupt someone during Thanksgiving dinner and accuse them of lying about a breakup? I stayed quiet. On the drive home, Ethan asked why I'd barely spoken all evening. I remember staring out the passenger window for a long time before finally admitting that I thought Lily had completely reversed what had actually happened at that restaurant. What surprised me wasn't my own opinion. It was Ethan's response. He didn't argue with me. He didn't tell me I was overthinking things. He just let out this long sigh and admitted that he'd wondered for a while whether Lily had a habit of changing stories to make herself look like the victim. That comment stuck with me because Ethan almost never says negative things about anyone. He's the kind of person who always gives people the benefit of the doubt, sometimes to a fault. If he was questioning her version of events, maybe I wasn't imagining things after all. Over the next few weeks, Lily started calling me constantly. At first, I thought maybe she was struggling after the breakup and just needed someone to talk to. That wasn't it. Almost every conversation eventually turned into a favor. Could I lend her a couple $100s until payday? Could Ethan take a look at her brakes because mechanics were probably trying to scam her? Could I rewrite her resume because employers weren't appreciating her experience? Every request came wrapped in guilt. She'd tell me I was the only person she could count on or remind me that family is supposed to help each other. If I hesitated for even a second, she'd immediately get quiet and say something like, "It's okay. I guess I just know where I stand." Eventually, one Saturday morning, she showed up at our house completely unannounced. When I opened the front door, she was standing beside her SUV with 3 giant plastic storage bins sitting on the driveway. Before I could even ask what was going on, she smiled and told me she'd just leave them in our garage for a couple of weeks while she figured out her living situation. The thing was, we'd never actually discussed that. I reminded her that she hadn't asked me. Instead of apologizing, she looked genuinely confused and said she'd already told our mom that I'd agreed to help. That instantly put me in an impossible position. If I said no, my parents were going to hear that I'd backed out after supposedly promising to help. If I said yes, I was rewarding her for making decisions on my behalf without even asking me first. I ended up letting her store the bins because it honestly felt easier than starting an argument on my front lawn. Looking back now, I wish I'd said no. Within a month, those 3 bins somehow turned into furniture, workout equipment, kitchen appliances, and random boxes that seemed to multiply every single week. Every time I asked when she planned to pick everything up, there was another explanation. Her apartment wasn't ready. Her landlord was causing problems. She needed just one more weekend. One evening, Ethan walked into the garage, looked around at everything stacked against the walls, and just started laughing. Not because he found it funny, because he couldn't believe how much of our garage now belonged to someone who didn't even live there. He asked me, completely seriously, when exactly we'd become Lily's free storage unit. I didn't have an answer. The truth was that I already knew this wasn't really about the boxes. It was about a pattern that had followed my sister for years, and for the first time in my life, I was starting to wonder if everyone else had simply been ignoring it while I'd spent years convincing myself I was overreacting.